Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Yale's CPWA program webinar, Introduction to Wealth Management Theory and Practice. My name is Kelly Jessup, and I am the Assistant Director for Digital Learning at Yale Executive Education. In a moment, we'll be joined by our Program Director and a special guest who are on site at the Investments and Wealth Institute Experience 2024 conference in Las Vegas. Just a couple technical notes before we get started. This time is for you, so please don't hesitate to ask questions throughout the session. Please use the Q&A function to submit your questions. We'll stop a few times during the session to answer questions and at the end as well if there's time. And if you have any technical issues with audio or video, please send me a direct message using the chat function. Now I'd like to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CPWA certified. He's also CFP and SEMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for over 20 years, helping build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught in the classroom version of this CPWA prep course for many years and is now partnered with us to bring his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale and in turn to you. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you, Kelly. Can you hear and see us okay?
Sure can.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. We're here live in Las Vegas at IWI's Exceptional Experience. It used to be called the ACE convention. It's their annual conference. So if you haven't come to one of these, you ought to come. It's great. Pick up a lot of CE and do a refresher of your SEMA and CPWA education that you hopefully did through us at Yale. But what we want to do today is just walk you through a little bit of the certification. And then also what your experience would be most likely like if you choose Yale to get your CPWA certification. I'm very happy to mention that we've got a special guest. Joshua Mancell is here. He's a 24-year veteran. I think it's 24. He works in his own practice, Wealth Peak Financial Advisors. He's a CFP, as you can see on the screen. He also, a few years ago, came into our program to earn his CPWA certification. So I thought it'd be really cool to have him on with me today so you can kind of hear from a program graduate, somebody who was probably in your shoes just a few years ago. So I'll kind of interact with Josh as we go. Feel free, as Kelly mentioned, to ask me any questions you have. And then also Josh, from somebody who, again, was running a practice just like you guys, considering all your options. What certification should I go for? And is Yale the right fit? So welcome, Josh. Thank you for being here. All right. So let me start with this, Josh, before we get into some of the kind of the key data points I want to talk about. When you came to us, you were 20 years into the practice. You had your CFP. At that point, what were you looking for in a certification? Not necessarily Yale at this point, but additional education, tools, resources. What were you looking for in a certification at that point?
Yeah. I really wanted more depth of experience, less broad, general rote memorization of facts and details and the things that you probably get at your firm or your company or wherever it is that you work, but much, much more about how the people that we actually work for look at what we do, not just in the job, but in the experience we try to give them, in the knowledge that we're trying to impart on them. And that's what the CPWA does.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And I think that's probably one of the first key points I want to make is, while there is going to be plenty of technical and obviously there's an exam to pass, the focus is on the practical. How can you take this into your practice now and get some value out of it with your existing clients and your prospective clients as well? All right, so it's just a couple of fundamentals real quickly, just in case you don't know. So at Yale, we provide an educational program that's registered with IWI, Investments and Wealth Institute. and test prep to help you get ready to hopefully pass your certification exam on a first attempt. But IWI is your certifying body. So if you haven't been to their website, you want to go to investmentsandwealth.org, like you see there, and just sniff around their website, see the different certifications, see more information on CPWA and all the tools and resources they have there. But I did want to bring this to your attention. They are offering scholarships through their foundation for $1,000 to $5,000. That's a lot on a product and experience that's $7,300. So if you even think for a minute that any of those things on the left-hand side might apply, and you could get $1,000 to $5,000, I think that's personally worth 10 to 15 minutes of your time to fill out the application and see if you qualify. So go ahead and do that. You might even do that while I'm jabbering on here, and see if you qualify. Okay, the certification process itself is not cumbersome. It's pretty simple. We're going to spend most of our time talking about content and the process at Yale. But to earn candidacy, you're going to need to apply for candidacy first. So there is a vetting process. You do that through your certifying body, IWI. It's all done online. They're going to run your U4 or your regulatory background to make sure it's acceptable. They're going to match up your regulatory background with your application. So you're going to do that first. That usually takes them a few days to a week to process. And once you're accepted as a CPWA candidate, they'll say, hey, Jim, hey, Kevin, Jim is now a CPWA candidate and he chose Yale on his application process, um, his candidacy application. It's going to take us a few days to a week to get you into the Yale, through Yale Central and into the Yale system as well. So you're looking at about 2 weeks from start to finish to get through that process. So this isn't, one of those programs where you just sign up and 5 minutes later you're online and going. There's a whole process to an accredited certification like this. So once you get into our program, you're going to go through a course, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and then you're going to work on your test prep. I want to have Josh share some insights on like how his special tips for how to get through the certification exam, pass the exam, and then there'll be some paperwork and a licensing fee, your first licensing fee that you will pay to IWI to get started. All right, so I did want to ask Josh to kind of elaborate on CFP versus CPWA. He and I both have both, but I think this is important because some of you may be better candidates right now for CFP. Not trying to talk you out of CPWA, but if you need a stronger foundation and you're maybe 3 or 5 years into the business and you don't have that foundation, CPWA might be quite a bit tougher. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but having a foundation, and I don't mean your Series 7 and your 63 and that kind of thing, as Josh is smiling, he can attest. This is a deeper dive for those of you working with clients in more or less a comprehensive financial planning environment that now your clients are worth 5, 10, 15, $20 million and up. And maybe it's aspirational for you, but that's the difference. And you can see on timing, CFP takes about 1.5 years for most people. CPWA, only about 6 months for most of our participants at Yale. So that tells you, does that mean CPWA is a lot easier? I want to ask Josh that too. Which one was easier or harder? It just means there's less information in CPWA than we all studied in CFP. It just takes longer to get through CFP because there's a lot more content. Now we're taking a super deep dive in the technical areas that are going to have the most impact for your 5, 10, 20, $50 million clients in CPWA. So that's kind of my quick and dirty on the differences. But Josh, I want to get your input since you hold both certifications as well.
Yeah, I think you really did a great job of explaining. The CFP is bigger and broader. It is a good first step because it covers so many things that you maybe haven't experienced as you with 3 years in the job. You probably haven't had a lot of that stuff come up in your office just yet. The CPWA takes it much further down into the specifics and the usability of some of that knowledge. It's really the difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? Knowledge is understanding things. Wisdom is applying it. The CFP gives you the knowledge. The CPWA helps you apply it. And that's, to me, that's the biggest difference between the two. I liked your aspirational comment as well, because it does help you. I mean, even more than understanding, it helps you know before the question's even asked what some of the people that we all really want to work with are thinking about. The CFP doesn't do that. That's not what it's for. It's not a shortcoming in the test, but that just isn't what it does.
That's great. No, I appreciate that, and hopefully this is adding some color to the conversation, because he's still in practice. I retired 6 years ago, but he understands what you need, because he is one of you, and he had to make this decision. I will say this: at $7,300, this is not super expensive, but it's not inexpensive either. I would argue, however, that for you as a busy practitioner with family responsibilities, etc., it's your opportunity cost. It's your time and energy that's even more valuable than the registration fee we charge to come into the program. So the more you can do to make sure that this is the right choice for you now, the better. So I'm going to plant that seed with Josh and come back to him in a little bit on, like, how do you know when the timing is right as a busy practitioner? All right, so let's move on a little bit. We'll do maybe another slide or two and see if we've got any early questions. Okay, so this is really important. This is the content from a high level: human dynamics, applied behavioral finance, family dynamics, intergenerational wealth, that kind of thing. Wealth management strategies on the bottom. That's kind of what you're used to, right? Tax, investments or portfolio management, risk management, asset protection, that kind of thing. And then up at the top right there, we've got working with your small business owners. When I say small, let's just say $100 million and less. Working with your executives. Okay, now you're working with executives. Their net worth's $15 million, but 12 million or 10 million is wrapped up in stock options or concentrated stock. All kinds of rules and regulations to deal with that, tax ramifications. We need to take a super deep dive. In those areas. And so we do that. Retirement of a note. Kelly, can you still hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So on retirement, there is a difference between this and CFP. And CFP land, as I like to call it, it was more about accumulation, right? Your clients are working to save up and invest enough to be able to retire someday. With CPWA, key difference, really kind of assuming from a curriculum standpoint, your clients are either going to make it or they have already made it. Now they got $10 or $20 million. And they got to figure out how to distribute that with all the comprehensive tax law that we have for distributions of QRPs and IRAs and Roths, et cetera. Secure Act kind of changed that a few years ago. We've got to stay on top of that. And then how do you get it to your kids in a way that is tax optimal, like tax minimization, but also will help them in terms of wherever they are in their life. So a little different, I would argue, than CFP land. And then charitable and estate is going to be a key piece of this. Maybe a difference there is in CFP, we studied about different types of trusts, but not specific trusts. In CPWA, you're going to study about 24 different types of trusts: the tax ramifications, asset protection, structural, et cetera. So a little different level there, to Josh's point. And it's not just learning and memorization, it's really understanding from an application standpoint, most of these really key concepts. Hey, that being said, here's my offer. If you haven't seen the 5-page line by line 500 topic list with exam weighting, shoot me an email at either one of these email addresses. I'll be happy to send this over, maybe tomorrow, but I'll get you the longer detailed content outline. I think that's really important to go through line by line to just cement that this certification is right for you at this moment. And so my question to you, Josh, is how did you know when this content was right for you?
It's a great question. Content wise, it was something that I actually wanted to do even earlier than I did. Back to the generalities versus the specifics. A baseball guy like Jim and a football guy like me can sit together and we can talk sports and we can have a good time. But if one of us gets too deep in the weeds, we're going to lose each other and we may not have the best conversation we could have. When I started realizing that I was making great sense to people, I was telling them about things that were important to them, but I wasn't doing it in their language. That's when I realized something had to be done. And that's exactly what this is. Again, that's what this is. The human dynamics piece and how that dovetails with everything else allows you to present the information in a way that they want to hear it, which is the only way it works.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Very helpful. I want to talk about the benefits. Now, this comes right out of IWI's website. So you can go to their website and see more features and benefits and value. I don't say this, and I don't have this slide here to like oversell you on the certification or our program, but I realize some of you have not been approved by your superior to actually use and go through this program. And some of you are probably thinking, hey, might they reimburse me? So there's a lot of good information, as you would hope that the certifying body would have, that you can take from third-party resources, IT Group, Cerulli, and present to your superior to say, hey, look, will you sponsor me in this, or at least approve that I can use the certification if I earn it? And so there's a lot of great information. But here's some of the key benefits. I think clearly to have CPWA certification and elite certification, especially one that you earned through Yale on the education and test prep side, having Yale in your bio forever, ever. I think there's a benefit, and that helps differentiate you from your competition. Higher compensation is not just a sales slogan from IWI. Go on there. They've got plenty of third-party research that shows where do CPWAs live and work in the industry. What are their titles? What are their responsibilities? And how much money do they make? Clearly, CPWAs make more on average than CFPs that don't have CPWA, and CFPs make more than those who don't have CFP. So there's a pecking order here, but if that's important to you or your boss, you may put that in front of them. More confidence with clients. I'm going to show you the roster of instructors we have is pretty impressive. I'm just lucky to be on the bench, but yeah, it's pretty impressive. Relevant content as well. But I wanted to ask you, Josh, I think for me, one of the benefits from the knowledge and wisdom that comes from a certification like this is in talking with CPAs and attorneys, not just my clients, but other specialists, other smart people, where before I got to this level, to be honest, I was a little nervous and intimidated around certain attorneys and certain CPAs in my city. That kind of all went away. Is it the same for you? Did you notice any kind of discernible difference in your comfort level or confidence with the other professionals after going through a program like this?
Yeah, 100%. It is an odd introduction to have a CPA or an attorney in the room, whether it's with clients or not, if you don't know them well to start. And the big reason is, especially if it's your client you're taking to them, you are the relationship, and they're not. And so at various times they work very hard to try to assert their knowledge. Having this background and the information that I was able to glean from earning the certification made that whole process incredibly simple. Even just, I don't know that I would have understood that dynamic prior to taking the CPWA. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when I was a practitioner, I would argue that alone might have been worth it to go through just to have that comfort level. Because when you're now dealing with 5, 10, $20 million clients, you're going to be working with their CPAs and attorneys a lot. It's going to be a regular thing. So the more comfortable and confident you can get, the better. All right, so program goals and objectives. I won't spend too much time on this, but I think it's important that you know that all the 550 topics we're going to cover either at the course level or the test prep. As Josh will tell you in a minute, probably at the test prep level, it's just then all about the test. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in test prep on certain of the 550 topics that just don't show up on the test. I want to help you be more efficient. And there's definitely a difference between our test prep and our course. We'll talk about that in a minute. The middle one is maybe the most important to me, maybe a bit altruistic, but Josh already talked about it right at the outset. It's just making sure this is applicable can you plug this into practice? That is, I don't know how many people Kevin and I have talked to, former students, current candidates, and it's what have you done with this in your practice? That's the most exciting. That moves the ball the farthest in terms of your career and your practice. So we always want to have an eye on that. But look, Josh was in your seat. I was even in your seat once upon a time ago. And as you get closer to your exam, all that's going to go out the window and it's going to be like, just need to pass this test over the next few weeks. So we get that. So we're going to start kind of big. It's all going to be applied. But as you get closer to your exam, when we're in the weeds, it will eventually be like, how do I pass this exam? So there is a method to our madness, if you want to call it that. All right, it's all about flexibility and convenience with an online program. So not only are we fully online, it's all on demand. So you can download everything, copy, save, print, whatever you want. Just don't share it with anybody. That's the Yale policy. You paid for it. You are the candidate. You are the participant. But that should give you flexibility. If you want to download the MP4s and listen as an MP3 or vice versa, you can do that. You don't need to be online. There are some tests I'm going to show you that you take before the certification exam. You will need to be online for those. But other than that, you can do this all offline. Just as importantly, you're going to move through at your own pace. I know some of you want to power through. Kevin, what's the record for completion? Yeah, 14 days. Now, I'm not throwing that out as a challenge for any of you specifically. But my point is, wow, if you've already got some skills and can really dedicate yourself, you can knock this out quickly. Most of our candidates, as you saw, about 6 months, study 8 to 10 hours a week for most weeks. I know life gets in the way, but do that for 4 to 6 months. You're probably going to be close to getting ready to pass your exam. All right, and I'm going to tee this up and then ask Josh a couple of things here. Not necessarily how much time it took him to get through, but look, you guys are all busy. You've got your practice, you've got your job, responsibilities, all of that. That could be 40 to 60 hours a week already. You've got your family and other obligations. Like, how do you do this? And I think 8 to 10 hours a week, that's a good target. I know some weeks it's going to be 2 or 4 hours. And maybe some weeks you can get in there and knock out 15 hours. But consistency, I think, is key because there's a lot of detail here and there's a lot of application to go through. But 8 to 10 hours is a great target. Do that for several months. You're going to get through not only the courses I'll show you in a minute, but most, if not all, of the test prep. 100 to 200 hours is very normal, but I'm pretty sure the guy that did it in 14 days did not take 100 hours. He took much less than that. And on the other side of that, population-based curve, we have the 500 plus hour folks. So maybe you're a slower learner. Maybe you have learning challenges or disabilities. Maybe you're only 5 years into the business and you're just playing a lot of catch up. That's okay too. It's just going to take you longer. But clearly it depends on all those variables that just kind of mentioned and you see there on the slide. But we wanted to build a program, which we did 7 years ago, CPWA online at Yale, that allows you to move through at your pace. Nobody's slowing you down. Nobody's freaking you out because they're pushing you too hard and too fast. That's the deal. You can get through this at your own pace and whatever you're capable of doing. We thought that was really important. So my question to you, Josh, is like, how did you do that? There's a lot of information. It's a lot of material. You probably had outside obligations, not just your practice. How did you squeeze all this in to get it done?
Yeah, I did actually have, so I had at the time 2 young boys in grade school. I coached 3 sports, trying to be involved in my community, my kids' lives, and still spend time with my wife and everything else. And the best part about the program, just everything Jim said about the way it was set up and the thought they put into doing it, makes it so that you can make it work with whatever you have going on. So for me, I tried to set aside my lunch hour 3, maybe 4 days a week. The nice part about that is every once in a while, something you saw in one of those videos worked out for you that day. That's pretty great. I did a lot of studying at 9 at night, which works too. It's tougher, but the flexibility to fit it into your schedule as opposed to fitting your schedule around the class means there's really not a great reason to wait until, because there's never going to be a perfect time. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, I'll second that. I think what you want to do, timing's important because you have a year and you see the 7,300. Oopsie, get you access for a year. You can buy access for an additional year. You really shouldn't need that. You could just download all the test prep past the course and you would be fine. But I think you want to make sure you look at over the next month or two and go, it's not a horrible time. As Josh said, there's never a perfect time. So as long as it doesn't look horrible, it's like, okay, that's a green light. You can get started. All right, in terms of the course, we've already kind of talked about it, but we've got readings. Most people don't do the readings so much anymore. We've got about 2,400 pages of readings. I won't put you on the spot and ask how many of those pages you read, Josh. Most are going to go through the 30-something hours of lecture video we have at the course level, past 11, pretty short, say a dozen to 2 dozen questions each tests. Those are not proctored. They're in the platform. You just take them until you pass them. That lets us know that you're at least working through this material because we can't be there to verify you're watching and all that. So that's what you do to get through. Then we're going to know that you passed, and then we're going to send your name to IWI. Say, hey, look, Jim passed our course. He's eligible to schedule his exam. You won't be ready to take your exam. You're just now getting into test prep. And as you can see there, if the average is 100 to 200 hours, and you got 40 hours in the course, okay, well, that's 100 plus hours of test prep. You're going to spend most of your time with us in test prep getting ready for your certification exam. Speaking of the exam prep material, it's a different medium, if you will. It's still videos, but now there's going to be videos of me. Unfortunately, you're going to have to Josh is kind of chuckling. You're going to have to suffer through about 7 or 8 hours of me just going through the 500 topics saying this is heavily tested. You really need to understand the application of these 3 slides. The next 2 slides, I can't even remember the last time they tested, according to you guys, past students. So don't worry about that so much. These next 2, yeah, you really need to nail this down, etc. Just helping you get through this in a reasonable amount of time. Josh, did those test prep videos help at all, or were they just whatever?
They were amazing. They were easily the most important thing through all of this. The test prep videos are so incredibly important. And you were, at least for me, as far as I can remember, 100% right on as far as this is heavily tested versus lightly tested versus not tested at all. Um, and you asked a little bit about the readings. I generally watch the videos, but for heavily tested subjects, if I had trouble with one of those kind of end of chapter exams, that's where the reading comes in. That you can go and you can focus on one particular item, but absolutely the test prep videos, I would say as much time as possible on those.
Great. Well, that was nice that he said that and didn't say, yeah, those weren't so great. Okay, about 1,000 practice questions. I don't want to give you 2,000. I want to give you 1,000 really good questions to get you ready and not waste your time. So that's what we do. Where's my help? This may be my last question to Josh, but I think it's important. You do have help, but on the content side, we're going to have to limit you to something. This is not a academic credit program. It's not for a degree either. So we have to have a limit on your interaction with myself and other faculty in that regard. But you've got Kevin who's here with us. I forgot my login. How much time do I have left? All that kind of stuff. There's no limit on any of that, and that's for you 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Canvas Tech Help is available 24/7. But Josh, did you ever feel like, even with the 12 question limit on content questions, did you ever feel like I'm alone? Where is everybody? I'm on an island. I mean, hopefully you didn't feel that, but I mean, be candid and just tell, because I don't even know what your answer will be. I mean, how did that work? Was there enough support for you?
There was. This was my first experience with Canvas. I had never really used it before. I understand it's quite more popular now than it was when I was in college. But anyway, to actually answer the question, I never felt alone. Part of it is the way that you set it up, though. If it's a functionality question, there's always someone willing to help. If it's a knowledge question, again, because there's videos, you can always go find it and you can find it very easily. And all you sometimes have to do is ask the question and Kevin says, check out video number 3 about 5 minutes in, right? It's perfect.
Excellent. All right, I did want to nail that down. I think that is important. Okay, a couple other slides with information on faculty. You can go to our website, learn more about all the great faculty that we have. Feedback scores. I mean, your pass rate's really important to us, but the feedback scores is even more important to us. So we're always trying to be the best. We're not perfect, but we're working this as hard as we can to make it as good as we can. And then when you're ready to register, you can do it through our website, but it's just going to take you to IWI's website. Probably better just go to IWI's website, go into CPWA dropdown, and then do apply for candidacy. That's how you'll start. So that's it from us on kind of the key data points. I think maybe we've got a minute or two for questions. Happy to just see what's out there, Kelly. And by the way, here's Kelly and my contact information if you want to reach out to us personally. So Kelly, what's out there? Anything?
Yeah, actually we have plenty of time for questions. So if anybody is wondering about anything about the program, or if you have any questions for Jim or Josh, just field experience, anything along those lines, like please do feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A. Could you, either of you, just explain what the work experience is for work experience requirement is to start the
Yeah, good
program?
question. I'll do that pretty quickly even. 5 years is the requirement, but you don't have to have 5 years when you begin the candidacy period. It's probably better for most of you. So on that one, you might want to reach out to me. We can probably have a short 5 or 10-minute phone call. We could kind of walk through whether you're kind of getting ahead of yourself or no, even though it may be a bit aspirational. Hey, you're still in a good spot. What you do is, let's say you're 3.5 years in to your career, but you do want to take on this challenge. You could start and you could go all the way through the exam. You just can't use those letters, even if you've done everything else, until you hit your 5-year mark. So hopefully that helps with that one.
Okay, and are there CE requirements, and can you double dip with other certification programs?
Good one. I won't put you on the spot, Josh, see if you remember exactly how many hours, but it's 40 hours every 2 years. And like Josh, I hold CFP and other certifications. You can double, triple, quadruple dip with most of these certifications. I don't know about you, Josh, but with just the 3 on my letterhead there, SEMA, CPWA, CFP, it's 40 hours for CPWA. It's 40 hours every 2 years for SEMA. It's 30 hours every 2 years for CFP. I'll probably do about 50 hours and cover all those 100 and whatever hours of requirement it is. Same for you, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. Yep.
And on the study materials, do you have to buy anything additional, or is everything included?
Yeah, good question. I would say for 90, I'll go 98%, but it's 90 something percent. This is all you should need. We wanted to create a program where the education and the test prep were in one program, one platform. Now you are going to do the education course first. You can't even, I don't even want you thinking about the exam until you knock out that 30 something hours, get your legs under you. Then you'll go into test prep. You shouldn't need, we have nice pass rates. You shouldn't need anything else. And now, again, if you're brand new to the business, don't have CFP or anything foundational, you struggle on tests, that's a different scenario. I'm not saying you shouldn't come into this. It's just going to be more challenging. You might need to buy something else, but that is a rare exception according to the feedback we get from our candidates. Good question.
Okay, let's see what else we might have here. So on the course support, you mentioned discussion boards. Can you just talk a little bit more about how those are utilized?
Yeah, so I'm going to give kind of the rundown there, and then Josh, I want to ask your opinion on those because as a former student. Oh, and by the way, I did want to ask because I had forgotten to ask you, like, why did you choose Yale? I mean, there's other programs. Why did you choose Yale? So I'll ask you that in a minute. But discussion board, I think, is really helpful because you do have that limit in talking with faculty about questions. The discussion board, I think, is a hidden gem in this program. Now, Kevin and I clean that out and we organize it and manage it. but I keep discussions even from 2 or 3 years ago as an FAQ. So, like, if you're struggling with a rolling grad strategy, you're probably not the only one that's ever asked about grads. So you're going to go into that section, go into that part of the discussion board, do a Control F, search on your keyboard for grads or Cuperts or whatever, and you're going to see other questions from other students. Some of them might be the exact question that you had. If we think it's pertinent, if we think it's really helpful, whether it was a student and a student interacting together, or more likely than not, it's like Ross Richardson, another instructor, and me helping a student through an issue, we're going to leave that, even if it's a few years old, if it's still relevant. So that's going to be a great learning tool for you to go back and pick up some knowledge where you're like, I clearly don't understand this. In Jim's video, he said it's important and it's probably going to be tested. So, like, how do I get there? I do want you to use all of your 12 lifelines. They're there for a reason. Only about 2 or 3% of our candidates or participants use all the 12 questions, but I want you to use them. But for a lot of these, you don't need to. Just go to the discussion board first. There's a decent chance people also struggled with that, and there's some good information, some good intel for you there. But Josh, did you use the discussion board much? I mean, some don't.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting that you remembered to ask why I chose Yale at the discussion board piece of all of this, because they dovetailed perfectly. I did use the discussion board, and part of the reason I chose Yale is because of who else would be on that discussion board. A huge part of all of this is the people that you're going to interact with. And you're going to interact with them generally, especially if you do it the way I did with videos and that sort of thing. You're going to interact on that discussion board, and higher the caliber of person on the discussion board, the more help I get. It also allows me then to go and I can truly prove that I understand something if I can explain it to someone who needs to learn it. So having both sides of that with people that are also going to choose Yale is the reason, and then also the why as to why did I spend time on the discussion board.
And I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that you were a Yale undergrad and maybe have a little loyalty to the Bulldog. I did want to kind of raise this. I highlighted the slide, and you can go to the website. Toby Moskowitz, outstanding instructor. Richard Joyner, who really is the father of this about 20 years ago with just an idea of a wealth management certificate program, which we eventually turned into a certification. Steve Siegel, who is here today at the conference. He's usually at these conferences. Master at tax, estate planning, working with your closely held business owners, etc. John Nersessian's here as well. He's a great communicator, a great teacher. Not to put you on the spot, Josh, but in terms of the faculty members, anybody jump out at you as, yeah, really learned a lot from him or her, and this was the area in my practice that really benefited most in that way?
Yeah, and maybe just to round the list out too, Michael Kitsis. Um, First of all, very well known, also very active with IWI. So he's here often. But an amazing presenter. The research, the amount of time he puts into figuring some of this stuff out is pretty astronomical. And then he's an interesting person to listen to when he explains it to you. So I'd probably add that one name.
Absolutely. Kelly, we got any more questions?
Yeah. Do you have to memorize a lot of formulas, and what kind of calculator do you have to use, or should you use?
Good question. So I'm going to leave the memorization question to Josh, because as a curriculum developer and teacher, I come at it from a little different angle. My answer actually might be different than his, so I'll save that one for him. Calculators, tvmcalcs.com is up and running again. So look, if you don't have a financial calculator or you're like rusty with yours, go to that one. TVM, like time value of money. TVMcalcs, that's CALCS.com. And the first Hewlett Packard and the first TI calculator, those are the two most popular in our program. either one would be just fine. I use an HP12C, got it around here somewhere. I wouldn't use that. It's a little more, it's a little fancier, but the learning curve's horrible. So just use one of those. And I'll also ask Josh, like, how many times did he think he used the financial calculator on the exam? I'm going to guess it's a pretty low number. My point is, it's important for this exam and it's important in your practice, but it's not a make or break situation, I would say.
Yeah, that's perfectly accurate. You use it. I think you may actually use it as much for general calculations as true financial calculator application. But all that being said, if you're good with your calculator, you get a bunch of free points.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a bonus in there. Oh, and then on memorization, like how much of it was like understanding a family limited partnership, a QPERT versus a GRAT? When do you use self-canceling installment notes? Like how much of it was memorization versus like more comprehension that was required?
It was absolutely more theory and application than memorization. I would say CFP is memorization all the way. CPWA is the application of that. So no, you're not memorizing formulas to any large degree. It is just truly how do you use it to answer the questions that they're asking this time.
So hopefully that was helpful there. Kelly, any other questions?
So to start this registration process, do I go to Yale first or IWI?
Yeah, I think, look, I think regardless of when you start the process, I think you need to be on both websites, maybe hours at Yale for 15, 20 minutes at least. There's a lot of great resources there. Much of it is what we've been talking about here for the last 45 minutes. But on the IWI website, if you haven't been there, look, they are your certifying body. You're going to be dealing with them forever as long as you're holding these certifications like Josh and I do, paying dues every couple of years, getting your CE, making sure you stay in their good graces so you can maintain your certification, follow the ethics standards. You need to get on their website and get familiar with that organization. It's not like we're going to go away at Yale in terms of support and that kind of thing, but IWI is going to be with you forever. So go get familiar there. You can start the process at either website. So like if you're on our website, you could just click on I think I'm ready to apply. That's just going to take you to the IWI website and the specific part of their website that says, press here to start your application. So you can get there either way. Just look for the big, bold kind of buttons to press there and get that started. Kind of an insight, maybe a little bit. I would do the apply for scholarship first. You don't have to, but I would just do that. The reason I say that is you apply, yay, you get a $2,000 scholarship. Very cool. Then you start your application for candidacy. That's the ideal way because there's going to be a drop down that said, did you get a scholarship? And so then you'll have your scholarship number or your code or whatever, and you can plug that in. So that would be the preferred way to do it. Do your scholarship, 10 or 15 minutes application. And then after you get yes or no, then do your apply for candidacy. And again, remember, it's about a 2-week process, about a week for IWI to approve you, assuming that they approve you, and then about a week for us over at Yale. Hey, speaking of that, so then we get you up and running in the Canvas platform. You'd never used it before. Tough, challenging learning curve, easy peasy. Just what were your thoughts on Canvas? Because I would expect some of our audience here has never done an online program at this level before. Can you kind of talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it was brand new for me. So there was certainly a learning curve to get up to speed and figure things out. But really, it's no different than any other brand new app or system. It's just different than what you're used to. It's not difficult. It's just different.
Okay, Kelly. So I think we got time for a few more questions. But while you're teeing those up, I did want to ask Josh, what is the Look, I mean, we tell all our candidates, we've been doing this for years, now thousands of candidates between CPWA and SEMA, just follow our 5-step study plan when you get to test prep. You're probably going to be fine. But what is Josh's secret formula for getting through the Yale material and adequately preparing for the certification exam? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes while we do another question to think about what Josh's secret sauce is here, because I'm kind of putting him on the spot there. But Kelly, what else you got?
That was very fair of you to give him some thought time on that. So yeah, so there's a question. Is the designation recognized and able to be held at both wirehouses and RIAs?
Excellent. So good question. About 40% of the people who come through to earn CPWA certification that come through Yale, about 40% are the major wirehouses, brokerages, what have you. Getting close to that many independents. So I was had my own RIA for 20 years or something before I retired, and I had worked at the brokerages and the wirehouses before that. You can use it at both. Very few firms limit the use of this, and more reimburse, at least to some degree. A number of them, I won't mention them on air here, but that you've heard of, they fully reimburse. And there are at least 3 big firms that require CPWA for certain levels of service. So we're kind of even getting, even though it's only about 15 years old, we're kind of getting to that point where some of the firms are saying, if you're going to do discretionary this or that, or you're going to be working with the tax planners as well with clients, you have to have a certification like CPWA. CFP is great and foundational, but you've got to go the extra mile. It's kind of like CFP now what? CPWA, and there's more and more starting to require that. But great question. Selfishly, I will promote a third-party certification like CPWA for those of you. I know if you're at a big firm, you have the option to do internal certifications, or let's just call them designations. Of course, once you leave that firm, you're not going to be able to use that any more. And plus, I think it's a bit more credible to the public, to your clients, to prospects that is the third party too. I'm not saying you shouldn't do an internal designation. I just think that the result, the ramifications are different, and a third party is the way to go if you've got the right certifying body. CFP board, CFA Institute, Kaya, IWI. These are some of the more legitimate, credible, elite certifying bodies. Okay, Josh, you've had enough time to think about your secret sauce, your secret formula. What would you recommend to people considering this? Like, how do you get through it? What are the keys to remember? Do's and don'ts, if you will.
Yeah, so I think first, generally, the biggest thing is to understand yourself and how you learn well, how you like to learn. Um, the videos worked really well for me. I didn't read as much. The opposite would work well for someone else, and that's perfect. That's how you should do it. So understanding how you like to learn is the first thing you need to do, and then work through it from there. Um, Second step, I would say, just generally, at least in this industry, any exam, not just this one, but we'll always have some free points. I mentioned the calculator. If you're good with your calculator, you get free points. Um, not as much in this exam, but for others that are real math heavy like the SEMA, make sure you know how to use your calculator. Those are free. I also think vocabulary is incredibly important. So spend a lot of time. I'm a big flashcard guy. Understand exactly what the words mean that they're going to ask you, and you'll get that, which would be the next step. This one specific now, Jim's going to tell you which subjects are heavily weighted, moderately weighted, and not very highly weighted. Pay attention to that. Learn those things. If you have a limited amount of time, spend your time where it's going to be tested. I'm a proponent of learning forever. Passing the test is passing the test. You can continue to learn even if you've passed it. So focus on the things that Jim tells you is going to be looked at frequently. Make sure you understand what they're asking in the question, which is the vocabulary piece. And if you can use your calculator and you remember your flashcards, you get a lot of free points just from that alone. And that builds confidence. So if you're not a great test taker, but you roll into this test knowing what every word means, all 24 trusts, right? And you mentioned Brett a handful of times. That's a thing. Make sure you know what it means. And if you do that, you'll start to build your confidence through the test. And all of a sudden that exam anxiety goes away. and now you don't second guess. You end up losing questions. You get them wrong when you second guess what you believe. The less you do that, the better you're going to do. And I think it's really important, and you can make sure that that doesn't happen to you by getting the free ones.
I like it. Yeah. Write that down and publish that. Josh's secret recipe for passing the exam. All right. I know we're getting close to running out of time. Any other questions we've got, Kelly?
Yeah, we do still have just a little bit more time here. So if anyone has got something on their minds, they want to get that question in, now is the time to do it. We do have a question about the certification exam. Is there a way to request accommodations for learning disabilities or medical conditions, something that would prevent you from sort of sitting
Great
in a
questions.
typical window?
Yeah, great question. So thank you for asking that. Yes, but I'm going to back up and then I'll come back to it. So yes, you can request accommodations. You'll do that through IWI, as they're your certifying body. They manage and operate the exams. It won't be us. And you'll need to have a doctor's note. You'll need to have an expert's note. In that regard, they'll tell you exactly what that is and what that isn't, but you can reach out to them. That being said, on the exam, it's a 4-hour exam. It's 135 questions. 15 are unscored beta items. Just like all these certification exams, there are going to be a number of questions on there that you may even see and go, wow, that is out of the blue. Jim never said anything about that. It's probably one of those beta unscored items that they're just throwing in there to see how it tests before they start scoring it. 4 hours is enough time for most of our candidates. You'll see a very lively discussion in the discussion board on, hey, I just took my exam. Here's what I saw. Now, what they can't tell you is specific wording of any question or answer choices they saw, but they can say, I did see this, I didn't see that. Timing was an issue, timing was not an issue. How many calculation questions? How heavy was the tax? All of that stuff. So you'll want to use that post-exam discussion thread. You'll want to read through all of that. It's a few pages long, but you'll want to read through that. It'll also kind of give you confidence to what Josh is saying, that Jim, and all those videos that I suffered through of you, yeah, most of that seems to be pretty relevant and accurate according to what the candidates and students are saying in the discussion board. So yeah, 4 hours for this exam is enough for most. If you follow the plan like Josh did, you follow our 5-step study plan, and you just don't deviate too much. Oh, sure, you can bounce around between videos and practice questions, all of those, and the slide summaries and the readings. And really, you're going to want to use them all. But as Josh mentioned, you're going to want to gravitate to the ones that help you most. So in Josh's situation, it sounds like it was videos and practice, application, like do it. And reading wasn't so important, but for some of you, it could be the reverse. So you want to gravitate to the resource that helps you most, but you're going to want to use them all, and definitely follow our 5-step study program. You should be fine. But okay, that was a lot of rambling for your question, which was, are there accommodations? Yes, you'll need to go through IWI. Let me give you a good contact over at IWI for this certification program. Ashlyn Costley, is that probably the best one to give? At IWI. So Ashlyn Costley, and her email is her last name, Costley, at i-w.org. She's great for Kevin and me. We talk to her every week. So if you have questions about things like that, even once you get into our program and candidacy, Ashlyn's probably your go-to person for this certification. Kevin, would you say I'm all right? Okay.
Okay, and I think it's looking like one question here on can you take is there an option to take the certification exam at home or at a test center? And do you have any advice or thoughts to share about that?
Good one. Love it. A few years ago, you did not have a choice, but thanks to COVID, that's not the right way. Thanks to COVID, thanks for nothing. Yeah, you have the choice now. You can go to a Pearson VUE testing center, just like you did for your securities exams. And that's the preferred, even though online testing, like at home or in your office, is available. You'll see in our program some kind of nuts and bolts, some experiences from past students, what to expect, especially when it didn't go exactly the way they thought. Like, okay, I'm going to do it from my home office. Oh, wait, it took half an hour. It took 40 minutes to get hooked up with Proctor. They have to go through your laptop or your desktop from a security standpoint to make sure you're not cheating. You have to scan the room. There's a lot of things you have to do. If you're like me and you suffer from impatience a little bit, that can be frustrating, especially when you're like, I'm ready to test. I'm ready to test. Let's get going. Oh, wait, I got to wait 45 minutes while we're getting all this set up. Pass rates are actually lower in this certification and almost across the board, not quite, but almost across the board in these certifications. When you test at home or you test offsite, let's just say, pass rates are lower. And maybe part of that is just not just the frustration of getting set up, but maybe you're just not quite as serious. Like when you go to a testing center, it's like, I'm going to be there for half a day. I'm here to pass a test. I'm in game mode. When you're at home, some people might not take it as seriously in that regard. I think that could be in play. Nothing wrong with doing it. We have a lot of our candidates do the Proctor U service, which is just doing it on your laptop at home or whatever. Or my slight preference is to do it in a Pearson testing center. And again, we've got a lot of good information on how to help you decide which one is better for you in the program. Great question, though.
Okay, I think we're just about ready to wrap up. Does either of you have any final thoughts to share before we wrap this up and sign off?
Yeah, just thanks for joining us. Hopefully this was helpful. I know it's a big decision. Again, your time, your energy, your effort, probably more important than the money. Kick the tires, do your due diligence. At this point, most of you have been in practice for at least a few years, kind of matching up what your head says and looking over the topics list and your gut feel and watching Josh and Kelly and me do this info session. At some point that should match up. And when they do, you're probably on the right target and you're ready to go. If there's a disconnect, don't do it. I mean, you got a lot pulling at you. Opportunity cost is huge. Until you're 90+%, just wait and maybe the timing will be better. But that's my final thoughts. Josh, how about you?
I would agree with you. It's absolutely worth doing, and I think, I might advocate for a little bit more of a push than when there's, but it is 100% worth doing. They make it incredibly easy, given that it isn't easy. But the steps that they give you, the information they give you, the help along the way, it couldn't be better. And when it's all said and done, it does make a difference when you get back to work. So yeah, find the time, make it happen.
I like that. We may have to brand that one, Kelly. We make it incredibly easy, even though it's not incredibly easy. But yeah, no, you heard it right from a past student, and now not only CFP but CPWA certificate. So yeah, from us, hopefully that was helpful. I'm happy to talk to you guys by email and phone. So if you got something personal, just don't hesitate to reach out. Or if you want that topic list, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to get to you. So Kelly, back over to you.
All right, great. Well, thanks both of you for your time today. And this was really, really exciting. It was great to see you out there on the floor at the IWI conference. So, and thanks to everyone who joined us. We appreciate your questions. And as Jim mentioned, our contact information is there on the screen. We will also be sharing the slides and this recording in the coming days. So if you need to go back and revisit anything, you'll be able to do that. And just thanks again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.